right, everybody, we're here, and we have Rudy with us. Welcome aboard, everybody listening to the podcast. That is the famous Jerry Goldsmith theme for Rudy. Technically, the track is called Take Me Out. This is when Rudy was leaving the tunnel, leading them to the final game. Sort of. It's arguable.
I have nothing to
Felicity
say about Rudy.
has not seen Rudy. I basically grew up on Rudy. I went to Holy Cross College. Eventually going to go to Notre Dame. Chose not to. I did not play football in Notre Dame.
No. What place would you have? Where would you have been in the football team? Would you have been like this?
I would have been like Rudy. Rudy was like a punching bag.
Oh.
Yeah. No, he wasn't good. He was bad. Yeah.
Oh, Rudy was bad.
He was not a good football player. He was
why is he a hero?
He was tenacious, and he was half the size of every other guy on the team, and he worked his butt off to finally be able to play in one play in a live game.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but what role was he? What was his position on the team?
He was playing like anything. Defensive end is what he did in practice or whatever, but he was on the defense. It didn't. He was a punching bag. He was.
I don't know if I'd like you to be a punching bag, Mox.
Whatever
Max.
my name is. Well, we were talking about Rudy. We're talking about, as you can see, biopics, true stories tonight, and we open up with the.
I'm here with
Rudy-o.
Mox and Velocity.
Yeah, and we don't know how to say anybody's names on this show anymore, but as you can see, we have Felicity back. She was,
and my front.
She was gone for a long time. She's gone for far too long.
Here all night.
But yeah, she sadly is here all night. I had a very nice time without her.
I miss me really.
But of course, as always, everybody listening to the podcast, thank you. Everybody watching live, thank you. It is October 10th, 2018.
Woo!
21 days
this year.
until the spooky season.
It's already started.
It is. It's already started. The fact that it's getting dark and we have a black cat walking across the...
yeah, she'll soon be on the screen. Bella Lugosi.
The Lion King.
Although she's not supposed to be Bella Lugosi, she's actually Bella, as in beautiful Bella.
Oh, dear. She lets me do whatever she wants. All right. Anyway, so we have Felicity back. She was away in London celebrating her birthday. We had special guests Cameron Graham, who is a Story Farm consultant and writer and actor, and then Wendy Cram with us 2 weeks ago, who's an independent producer and consultant.
And you didn't really want to see me last Wednesday. I was completely knackered.
Yeah, last Wednesday we had a little bit of a break. There you go, writer girl Karma, Rudy. Yes, well, she hasn't seen Rudy. I'm going to have to show her Rudy. But yes, welcome back, Felicity. All right, hello to everybody saying hi in the Facebook comments.
So nice to see you, everybody. I did miss you. I did actually watch you do some stuff with others.
Yeah.
I watched the podcast.
And that's just, as always, you can always go onto the Facebook page, ISA Facebook page, and watch the previous broadcasts.
Yes, they still exist. So you can listen to it as a podcast. You can watch it on YouTube.
Right. You can see I'm being purposely my little geek self tonight. This is my play on Tesla. This is the flux capacitor, and it's Emmett instead of Tesla. I like being a nerd sometimes. Come on. We dress up all the time. She's wearing a dress. I figured, you know what? I'm not going to.
I had to wear a dress because literally we did a test earlier and I looked like an old hag. I mean, actually,
she
Max
just crawled out of her
said
cave.
That to me, he said,
the witch is joining us on the broadcast.
You look like an old hag, and then he felt immediately bad.
I just feel bad.
So I thought I'd put a dress on.
Because she doesn't actually look like a hag.
I've just been literally doing stuff for Austin Film Festival for our event there, our showcase. It's happening at the end of the month all day. So I'd been holed up and I'd been doing cast lists and character maps, and I was like, what?
It's been a very busy week. All over the ISA. We have a ton to announce tonight.
So
bear with us while we go through, of course, our sponsors. Let's first raise a glass to our amazing Steel Wines.
Yes, Drew, it's Steel Wines. We love you so much. You're so kind to us.
Is always so friendly and helpful, and we have a little bit of a fun announcement to make where that is concerned. But as always, Steel Wines, thank you. We have a beautiful Grenache writer's block.
Oh, I really
Good
like
old
this
Bill.
Grenache.
We got a Grenache. Yeah, the Grenache is really
very good. They're all very good, but
if
this
you're
is one of my
drinking anything,
particular
even if it's just water, you can raise your glass. Cheers.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers. Sláinte,
Cheers
as
to
the
you.
Irish say.
Let's drink more. Joe, congratulations. Sorry, I just by the way.
Oh yeah, Joe keeps winning all these contests.
Just keep winning your So yes, well done, Joe. I keep seeing it on Facebook. Actually, it's good to be friends on Facebook so we can see your successes.
Right. Yeah. You should be sharing as many successes as you can wherever you can. You can share them on the ISA page. You should be an ISA member. If you're not, it's free anyway.
Yes.
Felicity goes through all the success stories, and we're always looking at them. So
I
if you
do.
have a success story, share it. But
I like good news. It's
Writer
my
Girl
favorite.
Karma is correct. When you need to be inspired, Rudy is the best film. It is.
Oh, really?
It's very inspirational.
About being tenacious.
And never giving up.
And being a punch bag.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about, the difference between biopics and true stories, maybe throw a little memoir kind of note in there. Before we get to that, though, of course, we have to talk about Cinequest.
Yes, because Cinequest is our sponsor this evening, and we are going to have a trivia quiz at the end of the night about biopics, and we are going to be able to give away one entrance into the Cinequest contest.
Cinequest has been said by Neil Gaiman.
It's the perfect festival in a glorious place.
Neil Gaiman says this, and he's one of my heroes.
And Cinequest was voted the best film festival by USA Today readers. And actually, if you want to submit, you can get a $10 discount anyway via withoutabox. And there's a code that you have to put in that our lovely Courtney, who is our new social media guru.
Welcome, Courtney.
Guru. Courtney,
you're
amazing.
Be posting some Cinequest and Steel Wines. You know what? I feel bad. I think we forgot to send Courtney our Steel Wines links. And Cinequest.
It's only her first day doing this.
It is her only. Yeah, we were not very helpful. We apologize, Courtney. But
sorry,
it's
Courtney.
steelwines.com.
Steelwines.com.
At the very least, but then Cinequest, I think it's cinequest.org. I think it's as simple as that.
I think it's very much that. Anyway, you can Google it. Use the Google, and then you can find it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we have a discount for you. You can get £10 off submission. $10. I've been back in the UK for 10 days and back to the sterling.
£10.
$10 off your submissions via Withoutabox, and there is a code that Courtney will be able to put up for you.
If you want to submit to Cinequest, which we highly suggest that you do, just send a message to the Facebook message. You send a message on Facebook to the ISA page and ask us for that code.
And we'll get it for you.
And we can give it to you then.
But otherwise, you can stay at the end for a free entry by winning the quiz.
Right.
The trivia quiz.
We're going to do a trivia. Really,
fingers at the ready.
Quiz makes it seem kind of daunting. It's really just for fun.
It is for fun. We enjoy it.
Yeah.
I feel very clever because I have the answers. Yeah, it's definitely the best
Dave,
way to
that
enter.
is a good question, and I think we've tried to figure out a way. Dave is asking, I wish there was a notice that is sent out when this show is started, had to tap and missed the first of the show. So, for one thing, Dave, you haven't missed that much. We just started. But I think we have tried to figure out a way to do some kind of, hey, our show is starting, but I think it's only through the Facebook broadcast, what do they call that? Their new... like the actual TV show element of Facebook.
Facebook Live?
It's not Facebook Live. What do they call it? It's
Facebook TV show live thing. I don't know.
We're not technically an official show with and through Facebook. Like if you see in the bottom of your Facebook phone app, there's like the little play thing, but then there are also your little comments, notification symbol. The little play thing is the actual Facebook shows that are sponsored by Facebook and people are. And so like the bigger name people, we're not quite as popular, but maybe someday. So I apologize, Dave.
Working on it.
Yeah, we're working on it. But we always start at 7 p.m. LA time. No matter what day we're on, we always start at 7 p.m. LA
We did try to start the music this time as well, so we didn't have that awkward moment where we're both kind of down and everything's crazy as it begins.
Yeah.
I want to put them together as a compilation, all the terrible, awkward beginnings that we have.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Thank you, Drew. See, Drew just put steelwines.com.
Thank you so much, Drew.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's Drew. That's our special Drew. And Drew is also, I just will say this at the same time, we have our Third Thursdays event that's happening next Thursday, and it's happening on the Nickelodeon lot itself in Burbank, which is so exciting.
At Nickelodeon. Steel Wines is sponsoring that
Steel Wines
event.
is sponsoring, Nickelodeon is sponsoring, and we're doing it at their lot in Burbank, which is amazing. And Steel Wines is supplying all the wine, so there'll be free wine if you're attending.
Yeah.
However, go to our website, the ISA, networkisa.org, and you have to actually sign in for that event because it's limited numbers, and you have to have said you're going by Wednesday, so do that now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Drew. You're amazing. We love you.
Yes. And of course, again, thank you to Cinequest for being a sponsor of not only the show, but offering these discounts. Anybody watching, you can send us a message via Facebook here and ask for that code. But I believe, here we go. So
the code.
we did just put it up here. in the comment section. ISA writers can enjoy $10 off submissions with Without a Box. Code is 10CQFF29. So there you go. You can copy and paste that. Cool.
Yes. Thank you, Cinequest.
All
Thank
right.
you, Still Wines. I have to a few more bits more housekeeping.
Yeah, what's going on?
Creative Screenwriter, their contest, their first ever contest.
Creative Screenwriting magazine
is actually ending this evening at it must be 12.
11:59 Pacific time. Yeah.
Pacific time. And I don't know the prizes for this. I don't know if you looked into what they were. Basically, the grand prize winner will get $5,000 in cash. I want to say pounds again. Shit. $5,000 in cash. The second prize gets $1,000. The third prize gets $500, which is amazing. Also, the grand prize winner will have their script optioned by producer Danny Roth, who's done the Hurricane Heist, LBJ, The Year of the Spectacular Men.
Year of Spectacular Men, yeah.
The top three receive the meditative writing course by Jess Hines, and the grand prize winner will also be featured in an article in Creative Screenwriting magazine. So there's some really great prizes there.
Yeah, it's a good
to
contest.
actually win the contest and have your script produced is really rather, well, optioned.
CreativeScreenwriting.com, I believe, is the link.
So, and then third Thursday in New York City.
Yeah.
New York. How was that? Pretty bad, right? So you can go and drink some coffee while you're in New York.
Can we just talk about what's happening in New York? God.
Oh yeah, sorry. This is third Thursday again. It's happening in New York next Thursday. And Jess Hines, who is the person who also does the meditative writing, is doing Dissecting the First Draft discussion with the
writer of
screenwriter
Cocktail.
Heywood Gould.
Yeah.
And he wrote Cocktail.
He wrote the 80s classic Cocktail. Jess Hines runs the meditativewriting.org consulting, so you should go to meditativewriting.org. It's amazing, and she's awesome. She is hosting this event alongside the writer of Cocktail. They're going to dissect the difference between the first draft and eventually how it became to the final draft. Yeah, it's an awesome event. The last one they did was with Jim Hart. We had that in LA. But then we also, I think they did it again in New York.
It's at the Assemblage, which is this amazing writer's space.
Yeah.
So
if you're in New York, you should be going. Or
again, all the details are on the ISA website. And then finally, our lovely Courtney, who has been looking after our social media, has just done this special giveaway for the Austin Film Festival, because I will be at the Austin Film Festival at the end of the month. I'll be there with Scott Marcus, our business manager, and Craig James, the owner, founder, Lord Big Guru of the ISA, will be there, and Ali Smith, who is a filmmaker who comes from Corpus Christi originally and is looking to raise funds for her money while she's there. So, and I'll be there too. We're going to be there with Table Read My Screenplay, Austin, our grand prize winner, Erica, who wrote Scattering Jake. Very excited about that.
If
and
you're
our
be
ISA
in Austin,
Writer Award.
You should say hi to us.
I was going to say, also, we have a party that's going on for the Heart of the Conference, it's called. And we have an Instagram contest running for 2 tickets. You can win 2 tickets to come and attend. So
and we just recently had an Instagram photo post go viral today.
Woo! I know, that's Courtney. Thank you, Courtney. You're doing amazing.
Pretty big deal.
So anyway, but this is a contest, so you can win. You have to like the post. I think you have to tag a friend, and you have to be. Anyway, Courtney would let you know.
Yeah.
But it's on the ISA Instagram page, which is at Network ISA, and it tells us all about the Austin Film Festival, and we're going to be there. And actually, the Table Read event is prior to that on Saturday, October 27th at 8 p.m. at the Citadel Club, and it's invitation only. But if you know me or you email me, I'll be able to get you in. You never know.
Yeah.
That's on my notice.
Those are all of the announcements,
Oh,
just like homeroom in high school.
Hi, Lisa. Nice to see you.
But
Thank
hello,
you for
Lisa. I'm just checking to see if anybody else saying hello. But hello, everybody. I'm kind of digging my flux capacitor logo on screen right now. It's kind of taking over.
You just need to make sure your arms aren't covering it. See, steel is making it say Mehmet.
Yeah, see.
Met.
No, I can't do it.
Emmett. Anyway, sorry.
We should do a biopic on Emmett Brown. Dr. Emmett Brown. Let's see. Sean Collins Smith. 2 things I love: the ISA and the Austin Film Festival. Oh, cool. Sean's going to be there.
I know he's going to be there because I
Sean
wrote him a
is one of our
letter.
previous Fast Track fellows.
A reference because he's up for a mentorship
right.
for LA.
Yeah.
He's up for a prize because
Sean's been killing it.
his pilot is in the finals for the ABC on our pilot
Yeah.
competition. Look at you.
Congratulations.
AMC, not ABC. AMC.
All right, so what are we talking about? 1.21 gigawatts. That's right. We're not talking about 1.21 gigawatts, but gigawatts, I should say. What the hell is a gigawatt?
No, jigger.
Jigga?
Jigger. That's also you have to do a little dance.
1.21. All right, so what are we talking about? We're talking about biopics and
Biopics.
true stories. And the funny thing is we were going back and forth a little bit because you went through a list on IMDb of all these different movies that are considered biopics.
Yes.
And a few of them were kind of referencing movies like Rudy and Blindside and Social Network. There were a few others that you could argue aren't quite biopics. Yes, they are pictures in a biographical sense.
Oh, then we talked about Erin Brockovich.
Erin Brockovich is a
And
really
Joy
good example. Joy is a good example, yeah. So point being is that is considered a little bit more of a true story movie that happens to, of course, be about someone who was, at least at the time, famous or became famous because of the movie. A true biopic is a Lincoln or you could argue Braveheart. Ali, or Malcolm X, what is the one, Walk the Line, Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash.
Because these people were already famous, straight out of
JFK.
Compton, you could argue is like an ensemble biopic. Because people already know who those people are and they're going to probably watch the movie because of that.
What do you think about the theory of everything then?
I would say it's a
Stephen
biopic.
Hawking.
I would say it's a biopic. Everybody knew
And it
Stephen
does really kind of go through the journey
It goes
of his
through
life.
his whole life. It's really, biopics are so tricky, and so are true stories, and we'll talk about really all encompassing. But I wrote out a bunch of notes just before the broadcast just to kind of give myself some signposts. But the first thing I wrote down was don't try to do too much.
Like everything in life.
You just can't try to put, you really, the biopics that don't work and the true stories that don't work are when you have this wealth of information and you try to get it all in.
I can understand that, especially if you're writing a biopic, then you probably find them to be a hero of yours.
Of course, yeah.
Or heroine. As you really love them, and if you've got interest in telling the story, then you find out all these fascinating details about them, and depending on where you want to focus.
Yeah, it's like where do you start? Why? The big question I had is, what are you trying to say?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's always working out what you want your audience to feel.
What
I
is
think we
the
talk
experience?
about that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you want someone to come away from thinking about your hero or heroine? So start there to have the thing that will then emphasize that or show that to be the
because
case.
it's what are you trying to say? What's the message? What's the theme? That's basically what you're saying. But how are you going to address that theme through the characters' not only life, but the story you're telling in order for the audience to also understand who this person is? Because with Lincoln is a really good example. Spielberg's Lincoln. So other than Daniel Day-Lewis being just unbelievable,
Insane,
which everybody kind of knew he would be anyway, take that out. The story itself was still interesting. It was still at least entertaining because Spielberg and the writers chose a very particular time in Lincoln's life. With someone that huge, we kind of already know a lot about Lincoln. I don't need to see the whole life story, otherwise I'll just watch a documentary on him.
Yeah.
And I'll get more information that way. So instead, what's the most interesting portion of that person's life, and why is that interesting? And then how does that little story that you're going to tell then kind of carry the DNA in total of who Lincoln is? So we can learn about who he is through this one particular instance, one
and
experience
why
he's had, and then what he stands for, what he believes in, what he's fighting for. You can get a sense of the time. I have not watched Malcolm X, but that was kind of in a lot of ways like Ray, Jamie Foxx's Ray.
Yeah.
They did try to encompass a little bit more of their life. Ray, I think they might have gone a little more than they needed to. We saw so much of who Ray was, and they had to kind of resort to flashbacks, etc. And you're seeing multiple years of how old he was, etc. I don't necessarily like seeing that sometimes.
I think it's hard to. It reminds you you're watching a movie, the flashback process.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas staying in it and just seeing a moment of time, gets it's easier to suspend your disbelief and remain
because
focused and in the moment.
The big question is, what portion of the character's life are you focusing on? And I think that the best example, really, in my opinion, is the movie Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash movie, because those filmmakers decided to choose one particular experience that Johnny Cash had that would then, like I said, carry the DNA of who he is, And they chose, it was through his pursuit toward and for June Carter, his courtship of June. And what ended up happening was that June Carter became such an integral piece of the story.
And the rest of his life.
That Reese, and of course his entire life. But Reese Witherspoon ended up being nominated for an Academy Award for the, So it was as much a story about her as it was Johnny Cash. But you wouldn't, as a lot of people would say, you wouldn't know who Johnny Cash is without knowing who June Carter is. So they understood that. They kind of understood that is at the crux of who Johnny Cash is. So I think if you do have some form of a biopic you're trying to tell, most of you who are not yet either produced writers or people who haven't made big studio films probably won't be writing the Lincolns of the world. They're probably, the Spielbergs are going to be hiring the Kasdans and the people who have done it before. So you're probably going to be going toward the true life story with some kind of public figure that is relatively famous but went through something amazing. That, I think, is what we were arguing. We were discussing before we started, the difference between biopic and true life.
Yeah, I mean, it's much harder to get an actor, for you to get an A-list actor who then we have to take another step to try and believe is someone else. Mm-hmm. Quite often for table read, I'll read scripts we sent to me and I'll have famous people in them. One of them was a pretty raucous time about Richard Harris, actually, in his time at university, and it was actually really great fun to read. But I also knew that for a table read, for the audience listening, I'd have to try and keep remembering to remind them that it was Richard Harris, because it isn't Richard Harris. It's just an actor, and it isn't even dressed like Richard Harris. We're not in the time. We're just having a read, and there is something about. Do you know what I mean?
During the reading, yeah.
During the reading,
yeah, right.
And I know if you're watching something, you then know this is a picture about.
Right.
It's hard, when you become the brand itself.
It's tricky, and so that's.
Capote was different, wasn't it? I mean, because I think Philip Seymour Hoffman is.
On Pete is saying that Reese won the Oscar. My bad, she wasn't just nominated, but she actually won the Oscar for Best Supporting in Walk the Line. But movies like Blind Side, Rudy, a lot of sports movies, Hoosiers, Moneyball.
Joy. That's not sports.
Joy isn't sports, but whatever. You've got these amazing stories about people who are known but not well. Nobody knew who Rudy was before that movie came out, other than some of the people who went to Notre Dame, just because he was kind of like folklore.
Or even like the Imitation Game.
People
knew who the character, who he was, but they didn't know what he looked like.
I didn't recognize that guy's name, and I didn't know what he went through.
Alan Turing.
Yeah, right. So I think making the decision, and most of you probably already know, I have a true life story, and this is about someone who isn't very famous, but it is about someone that I have to try to get their life story through this telling of the story. And it's tricky because you have all of this information. One of my writers that I work with, the Story Farm, is just starting a project about one of the most famous female pirates in history. Never even heard of her. Never heard of her.
I was going to say that's a good place to start if you're looking for something. Is actually there's really the industry is really, really ready for female stories, and there are a lot of untold historical females that aren't famous.
It's a huge selling point.
Her story rather than his story.
When you can say that this is based on true events or inspired by a true story, that automatically is a marketing tactic. But then you have to decide, what angle do I take? Where do I come in? What am I trying to say? What's the message here? Because the person in and of itself is amazing. Like in Erin Brockovich, you could have gone so many different ways.
Yeah.
You could have, it also, that's part of one of the articles I was reading before we started, is that what are you choosing to focus on for this character, negative or positive light? Are you going to whitewash some of the things that they did, or, and Rudy is an example, if you're in the Notre Dame community, Rudy was incredibly annoying, would never shut up, constantly complained about things.
You said you were kind of like you would be Rudy earlier.
I had professors.
He opened the door.
Trying to just move past that comment. But I had professors who did not like him at all. But it's because he was so tenacious. He never said no. He would never allowed himself to be denied anything. So do you focus on that angle of the story, that he just kind of annoyed himself into a situation? or do you give a positive spin that everybody can connect to? That decision needs to be made.
I guess it depends on how you feel about it, whether you think being an annoying and tenacious is a good quality or a bad quality.
Yeah. I mean, overall, the story of what Rudy accomplished by, walking on to the Notre Dame football team in the 70s when they were a national powerhouse, and Rudy was about 5'8" and weighed 160 pounds, and all these other guys were towering over him. It's, a boy among men, So it's the angle that you're choosing to take. So if it's a true story, what did I say? Yeah, and then what's the most unique element of that story? So if you are telling a true story that happens over many years, you have to try to come up with, okay, what's the most unique element within this that then helps support everything else around it? It's just so difficult to span multiple years and then go forward 5 years, go forward 10 years, or go back in flashbacks. It's just rarely works.
Yeah, I mean, Erin Brockovich, it was about her tenacity, wasn't it? It was in the fact that they looked at her as one thing because she had boobs and she used to have them out a lot. And then
But then she used it.
But then she used it in some ways, and then she also was, again, knocked on every door and didn't give up and had the bit between her teeth.
She was standing up for something she believed in, and that's what the writers saw first and foremost. This is an inspiring story about someone who overcame amazing odds. And then what do? How do you focus on that element of the story in a short amount of time? So because you only have a couple hours to tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, Amadeus for me is one of my favorite of all time stories, and the fact that they focused on Salieri rather than Amadeus. It's still 2 hours 40 minutes long.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, it's full of the most incredible music, so you can kind of forgive it. But again, that was a really great way of approaching the story. So you're telling the story of Amadeus, but you're going through Salieri, and you're watching a man be the only person who knew how brilliant he was, when everyone else thought Amadeus was an idiot.
Yeah.
And it was his curse.
It's a really good question to ask, though, too, because a lot of these big stories, like, biopics about Amadeus, you have to ask yourself, what angle do we take? From whose perspective are we going to say? Is we going to be just from Amadeus's perspective, or somebody who witnessed everything? It's like this book that I can't remember, but it was a book about Don Quixote, but from the perspective of brother, his little sidekick. Oh no, brother Javier. Is it Javier? I don't remember. But from the perspective of his friend that went along the journey, which is a really interesting perspective because everybody knows who Don Quixote is.
Who's that guy that your person thinks you're the reincarnation of?
Oh well, so Doc Holliday.
This is a bit personal. Sorry, everybody.
Doc Holliday, White Earp. Yeah.
But there was that book that guy wrote that was from that perspective. Wasn't it?
So he was the friend. So there was this. Bat Masterson is the name of a writer. He was a sports journalist in New York in the early 1900s, but he was a part of the Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday crowd, and friends with all these guys. And so he wrote about Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday.
Right.
So seeing everything from the perspective of an outsider basically is interesting, and you could add Tombstone and to that mix of true stories. But
so how about Braveheart, your other most favorite movie? So
Braveheart's tough, and we'll get to your question, Pete, about the legalities here. But actually, maybe that's a good segue, because Braveheart, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my word for it. But because of how old the Braveheart story is and who William Wallace was,
he was very much in the public domain.
It's likely in the public domain. Some of the larger scale people of history might still have estates.
Yes, I guess that's it. It's about checking on relatives.
Yeah, because likely Braveheart's family probably has some kind of an estate now, but you just have to check about level of estates. I'm not sure how else to do it. I mean, anybody who's famous from the 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, I'm sure that there are estates that are protecting those rights. But then people like William Wallace is probably in the public domain, So there is a statute of limitations. I know in songs that something like anything written before 1923 or something, it's in the public domain.
I'm sure there are loads of female stories that are not in public domain because people don't know them.
The story that my writer is writing is about that female pirate. all of that happened, I think, in the 1700s or so, just like during the American independence.
I have a friend with a female pirate story too.
Interesting. Well, it's in the ether. Sancho, that's who it was. Thank you, Bruno. Sancho Panza. Yeah. I don't know why I thought brother. Anyway, so what else we have? So
we also talked about the Wolf of Wall Street. Now that is
that I think it would be more of a true story because we don't necessarily. His name might be known, but he isn't someone that you're not going to necessarily tell a life story about that guy.
No,
it's the story of what he did in his career.
And Leo didn't try and change his look to become him.
It's more of a story about what he did as opposed to who he was. You saw who he was through what he was doing, and that was plenty. The Howard Hughes movie by Martin Scorsese, I would say that's much more of a biopic because it was a little bit of more about who Howard Hughes was, how crazy he was, but
and
also
JFK,
because we knew him. JFK
was much more about someone trying to prove that he was killed. So
right, that's not a biopic necessarily.
It's based on the true story.
Based on true events of the investigation.
Yeah, of the investigation.
Yeah.
Depending on who you believe, allegedly.
Yeah, right. What else we got? Rush is considered a biopic, I think. So
I really loved Rush.
A good question. I get that. See, I think everybody's seeing that there's gray area, but the important part is like if you're going to write a movie about Ray Charles, what's the story there? You can't just write about his life. You have to pick something like in Rush. What is that incredible event that occurred in his life that he had to deal with? So yes, you're going to learn something about his past and how that affects this current event you're talking about. Johnny Cash, we see how he's interacting with June Carter, so we get to know who he is. It's really, quote unquote, as simple as that. Figure out the angle. What are you trying to say? What's the message? What's the tone you're setting? What are you trying to say about this person, and what are you hoping people are going to experience?
Now, I've read a few scripts about that guy that's I don't know this is going to sound terrible, but he's a kind of a guy that sold his soul to the devil.
It's a musician.
It's a musician, a jazz.
Yeah, he's very famous.
You know who I mean? And everyone help me.
Anybody who's watching the famous musician, he was a jazz musician.
He's a jazz musician, and I haven't yet read one that's successful about making me feel something about how I'm supposed to feel about that. As in, do you know what I mean? As in, like, whether I think it was worth it, whether the deal was worth it, whether he was trying to save his family, whether it was about vanity as a
probably because we're not
musician
knowing who that character is emotionally enough, or we're not personally connecting to him, so that by the time he does have to make that decision about selling his soul, the stakes are feeling strong enough.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. See, I'm just saying it's like finding the thing that really connects to your audience so that you can ping them into caring about this person's life.
Yeah. So Bruno, it's a good question. Bruno is asking, can you write a script inspired by a true story based on news articles? Do you still have to worry about author rights in that case? So one of my Story Farm consultants, and I worked with him at Writers Boot Camp for many years, Mike Brennan, is a journalist. Mike could probably comment if he's still watching, but technically speaking, Bruno, yes, you do still need to at least check in with the author of the article and of the subject, the subjects involved, the people involved in the article. There are life rights that you probably need to acquire in some way. Not all the time do you need to go through some epic lawyer or legal battle. You usually can find the person and they can just say, sure, you can do this.
Well, I suppose if you speak to the journalist and say, I'm really interested, especially if it's a sympathetic version of events, you'd think they'd be kind of happy to have the story told.
Yeah, like, there's a story that I've always wanted to tell, and I guess I'll just put it out there, but during any baseball fans watching, and we're in the middle of the baseball playoffs, but I think, oh God, I don't remember, I think it was 1954, there was the summer of 54, no, I'm sorry. It's the summer of... I should know. But anyway, it was the year that... I think it was 56? No, it was during...
It was before you were born.
It was before. It was well before I was born.
1 or 2 years.
It was just before World War II. I think it was 1942. It was just before the Americans had entered. Anyway, Joe DiMaggio was going after his hitting game streak, which I believe, oh God, I can't believe I might get this wrong, but I think it was 56 games in a row he got a hit. during the game when he was going to break the American League or Major League record, which I think was 42, his bat was stolen and like literally taken from the stadium during the middle of the game. Long story short, they ended up finding the bat and brought it back to him after the game. Joe did eventually, of course, during that game, get his hit, but using a different bat. And it comes out that somebody stole it and tried to give it away to the mafia, so that they were obviously betting on this.
Yeah.
And they were trying to hinder Joe from being able to, continue the streak. But I came up with this idea that what if Joe's biggest fan was like an 11-year-old, 12-year-old who had dreams of playing Major League Baseball, heard that Joe's bat was stolen, and went out into New York to try to find it.
To go and investigate.
Really fun story. If there are some legalities there, because if you're going to use Joe DiMaggio's name, you're going to have to get Joe's estate to sign off on it in some way, I assume.
Yeah.
That's something you have to talk to a lawyer about, because otherwise I'm not really sure how else I would do it. What I would do, Pete or anybody wondering this, write the script anyway. Don't send it to anybody, but at least get the story down so you're confident that this thing is worthwhile. Get some people to give you notes.
I was going to say, make sure there is a story there.
Yeah, is this worth it? Because the legal battle, so to speak, could take a while, and it could be difficult to find people who actually have the rights to certain names. But you should talk to a lawyer to find that out. As another example, when I first moved to LA, I was this naive kid. I was, I think, 23, and I had decided that I wanted to write a feature version based of a movie based on the first two games of one of my favorite PC games. Did I say that right? Yeah, first two games of one of my favorite PC computer games called King's Quest. And so I wrote a script with my sister, and it was okay. It was, I had never really written a script before. It was fun, and I somehow got the VP of Business Affairs from Vivendi Universal on the phone 3 times. I just kept calling this guy. I'm not that way anymore. I don't know what happened to me, but I'm not that.
It was when you were 23. They wouldn't answer the phone now.
I just assumed, and I came at it also though where I was asking him for advice as opposed to, hey, can you give me the rights to this? I was just telling him what the situation was. Finally, by the third call, I don't remember his name. I wish he was so. He
was like, "You're like Rudy. Go away."
He was so patient and giving.
You remind me of this character
until
Rudy.
The third call, where he was like, "Max, he was like, here's the deal," and he said, even if Peter Jackson called asking us for the rights to this game, we wouldn't give it to him. I think he might have been exaggerating, but nonetheless, it's I found out who owned the rights to the game, called him up, said, "Here's what I'm doing," and they could say no.
I'm 23. The script is excellent.
Yeah.
I wrote it with my sister.
It's just about digging, EJ says, I hated it when the wizard would always turn me into a frog. So EJ knows King's Quest. Yeah, they made 7 of them. The first 5 or 6, I think even. The first 5 were really good. They were fun. It was like my first foray into fantasy. I think I was 11 or 12. That really opened my eyes.
I really missed all that. I haven't played computer games. That's something that really passed me by.
I was. My buddies and I would stay up all night playing that thing. I was in the late '80s, early '90s. But anyway, we could go all night about this, but we'd probably just be repeating ourselves. I think the important element, whether you have a true story or a biopic, you are listening and watching are probably going to have a form of a true story. Find the angle. What are you trying to say? What's the message?
How should we feel when we watch it? And it's still really marketable. It's really they're still looking for those. It seems that that's one thing that never really goes out of fashion. If you can find a true story, I think you're allowed to embellish on it a bit, though. I think you are allowed to.
Oh my God.
Dallas Buyers Club, the writer of Dallas Buyers Club, said I did take some of his story, but then the rest of it. I was selling a movie here, and it took them 15 years to get that movie made, I think it was.
I wanted to bring this up. So it's a perfect example of what we're talking about in terms of finding the angle. The King's Speech.
Yes.
They could have said, let's make a movie about the life of King, it was George, wasn't it?
Yes, King George.
Let's just get it, because he's such an amazing and interesting person.
Well, he was. He got through to the throne through the abdication of his brother. So
right.
That was the first. He was never set to be king.
So, but I'm just saying, point being, you could have told that story.
Yeah.
But instead, this movie is literally called The King's Speech, and more than 3/4 of it is about him preparing for the speech.
Yeah, learning how to.
And so I, who really knew nothing about King George, I didn't even know he had a stutter, and I only had heard vaguely that there was some kind of abdication, and he became, like, I knew very little. I learned about the life of King George and his family, and then the whole royal line through that movie and his attempt to give a speech, and of course the crown. Yeah, so that's what I mean about finding the angle. Don't try to tell the entire life story of somebody, because it would be boring, and you might as well just do a documentary, which is more interesting anyway.
Well, it gives you more scope if you're going to do a documentary.
Yeah, and you don't have to. It's a little bit easier because then you don't have to assign actors who don't look like the people. You can just use footage.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can do it probably more of it without other people, probably.
Yeah. So Bruno says your Joe DiMaggio idea sounds like everyone's hero. Interesting, Bruno. I'm gonna have to remember that. I'll look it up, because when I heard the story that his bat was stolen, I was like, hold the door. How is this never? I looked up as many Google searches about Joe DiMaggio's bat, and there is so little said about it. It's just an amazing little piece of history that I just.
I'm sorry, I can't hear "Hold the Door" without thinking of Game of Thrones, and bursting into tears.
Yeah, a lot of embellishment of Churchill in Darkest Hour. Did you watch Darkest Hour? It was what's his name?
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman. Yeah, I have not seen the Darkest Hour.
I did see it. I think I saw it on a plane though, which probably means I drank rather a lot of wine whilst watching it, because that's how I cope with. Oh, it feels like a holiday when I go on a plane. I feel like I'm going on holiday, so it doesn't matter if it's work or not.
I just try to sleep my entire way through the plane.
Well, I drink wine, then I sleep after that. Or I drink more wine.
I wanted to say before I had the King's Speech thing, is that if you can find a true story horror movie or true story scary movie, it's frickin' gold. Because people love that. Like, that's what the Conjuring series is. I think the last one, The Nun, is either loosely based or completely made up. But The Conjuring is an interesting story, because Scott Marcus is one of our co-workers at the ISA. He's a business manager. And so everyone's hero is about a boy trying to return Babe Ruth's bat to Babe. Interesting. But anyway, The Conjuring is an interesting story, and Scott knows the whole true story about what actually happened between those two ghost investigators and paranormal experts who went to help this family. And apparently the true accounts were twice as terrifying as what was actually in the movie. There were some scenes that the filmmakers said, no one will believe this. We're not even going to bother putting it in. And I saw The Conjuring, and it is fucking scary.
I wouldn't watch it.
It is a scary movie.
Max was trying to make me watch the
remake
of the
Poltergeist, which was bad.
The other day.
I love Sam Rockwell.
The trouble is I a friend of mine has experienced a poltergeist happening, and I really believe him. And he was telling me about this money flying across the room, and then he brought his dad up, and it kind of came. Yeah, unfortunately, not notes that you can get and be a millionaire, just like hard coins that are being flung around a bedroom.
Okay.
And I just don't want to know about that stuff. There's something I think I want to.
I get it. My sister's the same way. She can't even look at the cover of a scary movie like a DVD box.
Well, it's so awful because The Nun allegedly wasn't amazing. I mean, I haven't seen it, so I can't comment. But it did made 329 million.
Is it that much now?
Yeah.
Write a horror movie.
So if you can
and
find
if you can write a good one, you're gold, man.
But I mean, what it's trying to get to the root again of what is really scary, isn't it? I mean, and then what the angle is for you to take away from it without going.
That's the hard part about those genre movies. It's the same thing for romantic comedies, really. Ironically, even though they're so opposite, you have to do something that we haven't seen before, and we've seen so many good horror movies. We've seen so many good romantic comedies. How do you do something fresh? And that's why The Conjuring was relatively fresh. Really, the primary thing that was fresh about The Conjuring was it was based on a true story. And people knew, because of how famous these paranormal investigators were, oh, wow, these two people are giving up the rights to tell their story.
Right.
That's what sold it. The story itself, a lot of the things we'd kind of seen before, because at the time when it all happened, which I think was in the late 70s, 80s, nobody really knew about that stuff. Nowadays, we know about all these different
But what about the nun then? I don't think there's been nuns saying, I'm going to give up my story.
Yeah, I don't know.
The ghostly nuns.
I don't know the story of the nun, to be honest. I should, but I should be up on that.
I allow myself not to.
With a true story, it's how do you keep it fresh? What's really interesting about it? What's the angle? What are you trying to say? What's the message, theme, tone, genre. You got to make all these decisions.
And then my last one to think that they put on this top 50 for IMDb was Schindler's List. So we didn't know who Schindler was or what he looked like.
Right.
But that story...
It's a true story. Saving Private Ryan is based on a true story.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So, but like I say, find the female ones because they're hungry for them and they're ready for them. So even men, look out for them. Women, of course, we need to be telling our stories. But men, I think it's time for you to play along.
Well, I also think it's time for trivia, folks.
It's so time for trivia.
So it's time for trivia. Let me just see. We got some comments. The Conjuring is awesome, and the idea that something like that can be actually truly true is it's very scary. Seems like horror movies have become amazingly popular. They have been popular for a long time, Elizabeth. And
I know.
They just have a built-in audience. It's people. They have fans who are going to watch any new horror movie. Like they just have those dedicated people. It's kind of like the comic book fans. They're going to go watch the comic book movies because they're a fan of the genre. But it's also extremely easy to make a really bad horror movie, and those fans are going to kill you. Like they've seen them all, and they know what makes for a good horror movie, and so they're that much more critical. So it's difficult. Don't just go in going, I'm just going to write a scary movie. It has to be fresh and new. And really, because there are so many, and we're in Halloween season, because there are so many ghost stories out there, and you watch all these investigation shows, and there's so many stories about certain hauntings and ghosts and where they might have come from. There's just gold waiting to be mined out there, but you just have to write it. Have you guys seen Colette yet? I have not seen Colette. I have
seen Colette. I saw it actually at Sundance, and I really liked it. I thought it was I thought she was excellent in it.
What is her name? I can't remember.
Keira Knightley.
Keira Knightley, yeah.
And the guy that does The Affair, what's his name? He was in The Wire. He's a British guy.
Yeah, he's good.
He's good. He's really good at playing British people. His American accent for me is a little bit suspect.
That's weird.
I've just been here long enough now. Mine's terrible, so I'm like, that's why I'm going coffee, so I can. That's why I can spot another bad one when I see it. So, but yes, it's good because it's all about the fact that basically she wrote the stories and he got the fame and acclaim.
So
in Paris.
Here's the problem. We've got about 10 minutes, and we're gonna have to do trivia. We got two interesting comments here. Saw a list on Twitter recently of black people that should have their own biopic. There's a huge swell of true story African American true stories in Hollywood right now, which is awesome. Problem with that is that it might get flooded. So if you have an amazing story,
problem with that is I would say find someone to collaborate with. If you are
try to find a name that would then back you.
If you're a white male.
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah. But then Anthony's asking a really good question that it kind of really goes into a much longer. Well, there you go. Bruno is basically answering your question, Anthony. But I could go into a much longer lecture. But is there a structure to horror movies? And the problem is the too easy answer is yes, because horror movies and scary movies almost follow too close of the same structure, especially the haunted house movie, where you got a family pulling up to the house and they're like, hey, we found our new home, everybody. And
it's gonna be amazing.
They're talking to the realtor and they're like, what's the history of the house? Well, there's a tree back there and this was buried on a cemetery. Don't worry,
my daughter is talking to someone in the attic.
Yeah, it's so if you are going to write a horror movie, watch 100 of them and just study the hell out of them, and then try to find ways to not do the same exact thing. The structure for any story is the same, but how you then work with the structure is how you make it
try and make it surprising.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll keep going with these questions. All right. If the subject is no longer living, are there still legal issues that need to be cleared? Possible.
Yeah, the estate.
It's possible. Some of those families have estates. Like Tolkien, of course, now they have a huge estate because of the movies, but most of the famous people have estates.
Yeah, children, grandchildren.
Yeah.
And whether it's right or wrong, they do own their property. Yeah. So.
All right, so get ready for trivia, everybody. We are giving away
Fingers at the ready. We're giving away one entry to Cinequest. So
free entry to Cinequest. Cinequest is an amazing contest and film festival.
And thank you so much, Cinequest, for sponsoring us today. And for the £10 discount, $10 discount that you offered earlier, that Courtney put in the link, thank you to Steel Wines. We are doing a biopic.
We are going to ask four questions. If there's any kind of a tie, we'll have a little bit of a tiebreaker. Okay?
Okay.
What?
But if it's 2 and 2, then okay, I see what you mean. 4 questions.
Yeah, then you'll ask another. I'll ask a fifth or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so
all right. So get your typing ready. So just as a disclaimer, I apologize that some people might have a slower connection. There's not much we can do about that. Just try to be quick on the draw. The first comment that comes up with the correct answer is the person that we will say, "Hey, so and so got it."
And what we're going to do is there's 2 parts to these questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you a famous actor for this first one, and then you have to tell me the character they played in the biopic and the movie. And I'm going to start with something easy.
So the actor could have played multiple roles.
Or if if they get that right, then that's right. That's amazing. As long as we can check it. I have some here. That's fine. That's good. We can make it.
All right, we're
going to
see how this goes. So she's going to say an actor. You have to say the role and movie.
So yeah, a biopic. Mainly a biopic, but it could be a true story because some of them seem to be a bit more true story than the kind of rest of it. And we're going to do 4 questions, and I'm going to start with Meryl Streep. Who did she play in a biopic, and what was the name of the picture?
Didn't she do a lot?
No.
I know who you're talking about because I think you ran this by me before. Let me see. Yeah. Oh, I forgot the actual name of the person.
A bit of a clue. It's a bit of a British one, that one.
So Meryl Streep, you have to know who she played, the name of the actual real person, and the name of the movie. This isn't easy. So this is what I mean. So she did play Julia Childs.
Oh, yeah, she did.
This is what I mean.
But in Julia. Oh, God, and I've just given you the thing of it.
So let's see if anybody comes up. It's one of her more recent roles. We'll say this, famous English
politician.
So it is not.
We weren't thinking of that, but the thing is that I guess so we can always do that because that does work.
We're gonna have to flip.
There we go. Look, Bruno.
Right? Bruno.
Oh, the Post.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so Michael. There you go. So Dave, you technically got it correct. Michael, even though you said Margaret Thatcher, Dave got it correct. Margaret Thatcher and Iron Lady. Okay. That is the answer we were looking for. So I apologize, Michael. But so what we're gonna do this time is say the movie.
Okay, and then you got to do the.
Well, actually, let's say the real person.
Okay.
We'll say the real person.
But they could have more than one person doing it.
The likelihood is probably a little less.
Okay.
It's going to be a little more memorable. So Dave has one. Let's see if anybody else. So Dave got it right. It's how Dave answered Margaret Thatcher. And actually, he said Thacker, but Thatcher and Iron Lady is correct. So now we're going to say the name of the real person.
J.M. Barrie.
J.M. Barrie. Okay.
J.M. Barrie.
J.M. Barrie is the real person that an actor played in
an movie.
In what movie?
In a movie.
In a movie.
J.M. Barrie.
So you have to name the movie and the actor that played J.M. Barrie in said movie. Waiting. Here's when we need to be playing music. Everybody on the podcast is like, boring part.
Yeah, they just have to sign off now. Thank you for listening, podcast listeners. We love you.
Johnny Depp never. Okay, so you're close. We're gonna give a hold on EJ. Pete, I gotta give it to Pete.
Yes, Johnny Depp, Finding Neverland.
Sorry, EJ. Pete did correctly guess Finding Neverland and not just Neverland. One of my favorite movies, to be honest. Johnny Depp and Finding Neverland is correct. All right, let's go to the next one.
John Merrick.
Who?
John Merrick.
John Merrick is the real person. So this is tough. I would not have gotten this. So John Merrick is the real person. We have to know the name of the movie and the actor that played
John Merrick. That's my clue.
God, that's a pretty offensive clue. Very offensive clue.
Is it?
So what do we have? We got Pete and Dave they're tied at 1.
Tied at 1.
This is question number 3.
John Merrick, spelt Merrick. John Merrick.
Who is Googling this?
Everyone is. Why wouldn't you?
Well, Michael, we get to take another sip anytime we want. So, Joe, you got to say who the actor was.
Who the actor is? Come on, Joe. Come on. Google. Use the Google. IMDb.
Who is the fastest typer right now? Give me some Cinequest. Give me some Cinequest free entry, baby. So I'm not going to say whether or not Joe is up. John Gigrich, the Elephant Man, and John Hurt.
Yes.
There it is. So that is correct. We've got a three-way tie. We got John, Dave, and Pete. Very good, John. Very good. Elephant Man. So now we got all the answers coming in. It was not Bradley Cooper, but he probably could have done a good job.
Maybe next time.
Elephant Man
Maybe
was
the
what,
remake.
like the 80s or something? It was somewhere in the middle.
Very
of the
old.
80s, yeah.
Then I'm going to
What's
do
the last one? Let me choose the last one.
this one.
That is a... Okay, that's a good one. All right. So the name of the real person was John Lovell.
Jim.
I'm sorry. Jim Lovell, Lovell. It's the name of the real person.
Real
Played
person.
by whom in what movie?
It's one of the favourites.
Jim Lovell.
One of the top dogs.
I'm going to finish this off while I wait.
Steel Wines, Drew, we love you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the wine for our event on Thursday. Please remember to sign up third Thursdays on our event page, networkisa.org.
Jim Lovell in what movie?
What movie?
Oh, very good point, Courtney. Bradley was on Broadway in Elephant Man. Okay.
Ah.
so Joe, you weren't completely going out of your mind. I was. Look at that, Bruno. We've got a four-way tie, Apollo 13 and Tom Hanks. We even tagged Tom Hanks. Brilliant.
Woo!
Maybe Tom will tune in.
I
All right,
did
so
say
we've
he's
got
one of the
Bruno,
greats.
Dave, John Gigrich,
And Pete.
Those four are now going to have a little bit of a playoff. All right? So Bruno, Dave, Pete, and John, you were the only four that can answer this next one. Anybody else who comments, we're going to ask a different question. So it's only John, Dave, Pete, Bruno. Okay, those four people can answer this question. Last one, same format.
Do you think this one?
That's gonna okay. This is an easy one. So this is gonna test Well, actually, since it is easy, maybe we should do. I don't want to rely on internet connection. So let's do one that might be a little more difficult. Oh boy, these are these are difficult.
Yeah.
How about this one? What's that one?
Yes, that's a good one.
Is that a good, well-known
yes,
movie?
I love that movie.
All right. So, the famous person is Nelson Mandela. Who played Nelson Mandela in what movie?
And it was really good. Matt Damon was in it too.
Ah, good clue. Okay. So, Nelson Mandela in what movie? This is John, Pete, Dave, and Bruno. Those are the only four people that can answer.
I'm doing a
It's
dance
up to you
now.
guys. Who gets it first?
And free entry for Cinequest. Please remember you get $10 if you use our code.
Our delay is pretty funny. I'm
Our
just
delay
gonna
is
pour
kinda
some more
crazy.
wine while we.
Oh, well,
Very
I'll maybe have a
delayed.
little tope up myself then. We're gonna go to our
We
place.
might have to go to our famous little Tironi that we always hit up. What do we got? Long Walk to Freedom, Idris Elba. Nope, incorrect. Pete got it right. Invictus, Morgan Freeman.
Woo! Pete, you got your
Good
free
guess, though,
entry.
John. It's a good guess. The irony is that it's technically not the answer we were looking for. Did Idris Elba play Nelson Mandela in The Long Walk to Freedom?
I think he did. The trouble is we have to go with it. We did that earlier. We didn't give it to Julia Child, so we have to kind of go with the one that we had in front of us. I'm so sorry,
Sorry,
John.
John. Ironically, you were probably correct, but that is the answer we were looking for, Morgan Freeman and Invictus. So that is, I guess you could argue, possibly the more well-known version.
And also, but Julia and Julia, we didn't give it to the other person,
Yeah.
so we have to stick with our.
Sorry, John. We highly suggest that you take advantage of the discount and still submit to Cinequest. whatever script you have, do some rewrites on it. Everybody should be submitting to Cinequest. But if you want the code, it's up in the comments. And Courtney, if you're still watching, you can put that code to Cinequest in again that everybody can use. And also,
if you're anywhere near a third Thursday, John, come and say hello.
Go to our events page. At the very least, you go to networkisa.org. I think it's as simple as / events, or just click the events tab.
Yeah, I don't know where you're at, but I mean, honestly, we love meeting you in person. I'm going to be at the Austin Film Festival. Max and I are both going to the Napa Film Festival in November. So if any of you are coming along or going to Napa or interested, it really is the community here. We thank you so much for listening. We do really appreciate it and watching. Fun. This is fun.
Yeah.
So, but it's good to meet in person because honestly, we are your biggest champions. We really do care about you. We want you to be successful. We want you to write these biopics and these true stories and get somewhere, change your life. We want to be part of it.
And if we are not a part of it, we want to know about it.
Because we're nosy like that.
There's the code again. It's 10CQFF29. For everybody listening on the podcast, it's a good question about whether or not this will still be available.
It depends how quickly we can get it up. We can try and get this one up quickly.
We can try to get it up quick. If you have questions on the podcast, send us a message on Facebook and say, is the code for Cinequest still available? And it's going to be as simple as that.
And it's through withoutabox. You have to go through them rather than through us, because you can actually apply through contests with the ISA as well. Right, but this is a withoutabox one. Okay, well, I think that's it, isn't it?
That's it, everybody. Thank you, everybody. We're going to be back next week. Then we're going to be off a week, and then we're going to be on Wednesday, October 31st, which happens to be that holiday of Halloween.
Spooky Halloween.
We may or may not be in costume. So everybody listening in podcast, you are not going to be able to see us dressed in.
So maybe you should try and tune in. However, and then the week after that, we're going to be actually at Napa Film Festival, and we're doing Wine Wednesday from the Napa Film Festival.
From Napa. We're going to be probably
hammered
by the time that we...
I've got so much work to do. I won't be able to...
The only worry I have is we have to find a location that has internet and still looks nice, because we have to broadcast at 7 p.m., and so we're going to have to find a spot, and I don't want it to be in like a random hotel room.
It probably will be a random hotel room. I'm just warning you in advance. That's probably what it's going to look like.
Maybe what we can do in the lobby somewhere. But anyway, next week we're on. Following week we're off, and then we're on again for Halloween. So everybody enjoy the week. We're going to be on next week, and we will see you then.
Thank you so much.
Right. Bye.
Bye.